Well, hello everybody. It's time to begin. We want to talk a bit before we let the artist show us his talent, and we're having some changes in who does what. So I'll just let you know what they are. First, I'll let you know that the art sale that we had in August went very well. You know, people brought. I think we sold 24 paintings. So I mean, it wasn't a big money maker for anybody, but we all came out ahead, including the Art Association, because we don't charge much. But anyhow, we had a fun day, so we'll do it again next year. Another change, Roger will be now called, he doesn't want me to be official about this, but I think it sounds good, art show manager, because the library art display will be my job. Yeah, you manage everybody. Yes, that's right. I'll bring a whip next week. So Barbara Greeland and her husband Charles have agreed nicely to take the display at the library. So whenever, I'd like Barbara to stand and Charles, because that's really helpful. And she has a list with her, and whoever might want to display their art, I believe this is the one, Claire can tell me, that we don't, if you sell 100%, not 80%. So, and it's a wonderful display for the library. I see a lot of people stopping to look. So, Charles and Barbara will have their phone number in the newsletter next time in case you didn't pick up this list, but we're passing a list around. Right now they have their wonderful photos there, so be sure to stop in. And then Joan Fishman and I will take over the town hall display. It's not a big job, but every 2 months we'll, put things there so that the community can see that we're alive and well and painting nicely. So that's another thing that we want you to consider. If we have somebody, Terry and Maggie are going to put things in the town hall next time. But in, like, say, let's see, October, November. In December and any months after that, if anybody wants to put their photos or paintings in the town hall, just get in touch with Joan or me, and we'll meet you there whenever it's convenient. And I also want to say that September is renewal of membership, and Bob Martin is here. He's got some slips if you need to write up your renewal slip. I guess a lot of people are remembering, which is wonderful that they did renew, and some people renewed for 2 years, which is even more wonderful. So anytime you want to ask Bob for a slip or just send it in, it's the form at the end of the newsletter. And if you're getting things online, you can print that too. And it's also on the website. So the benefits, I just want to say, of being a member of the Braintree Art Association is the prestige, of course. But no, it's the fact that we are a community of art lovers that we enjoy encouraging each other. We enjoy these demos once a month, and we learn a lot. We also have the newsletters that keep everybody informed, and we have 3 art shows a year. Mostly we have the fall and then the spring art show, and then we have that one in the summer. So I think I'm going to say the art show for the fall is a little early. It's November 7th for a week here in the library. So that gives you time to go through what you intended to put in the art show and bring something for, the community. I mean, it's downstairs. People come and go all the time, so your work will be noted. There will be a judge. Yes?
No, artwork has been selling downstairs.
Has it? In the library? Yeah. And is that the one that doesn't have a percentage? It sells full price. Right. I like that. Okay. So anyhow, think about November 7th, which, believe it or not, will come before you know it, and try and paint something, 1 or 2 things, and bring it, and we'll tell you more in the newsletter. Roger also wants to tell you about a group of people that are going on Wednesday mornings to the Arts Center that's up on Washington Street. Would you say a few words, Roger, about that? Because he's getting them going, which is wonderful. Have to really speak into
Well,
it.
many of you have probably have seen the new Braintree Community Arts Center that's located on Route 37, where the old TB hospital used to be. There's the playground, and in front of that is a big white building, and they have the name right outside. Anyway, they advertised for an open studio for any artist that wanted to come and paint for $2 for 2 hours for $5. And it's a great facility. A group of us have been meeting there on Wednesday from 10 to 12. And it's absolutely, we were so enthralled. Everybody that was there for the first meeting has come back. And it's such, yeah.
Roger, I go by every day from work, and I swear, as I'm going by, I see you and what's her name over there, Rita?
What were we parking in the parking lot? Well, Rita does attend that class with me, but we don't sit side by side. And she drives there herself
Getting ready to leave.
and goes home herself.
Looks like Roger and Rita. Thank you for
If you want to know, I sit beside Jean Doran, and there's a lot of talk going on about that. But as Jean can attest to it, we have a wonderful time, don't we, Jean? Yeah, it's a congenial group. And there's an artist, Lisa Korzak. She's like the coordinator. We give her the money. And if you have any questions about your artwork, she's a well-known artist, and she teaches at the school. So she'll give you any suggestions that you might need, or might want. And she also, what she does a lot of times is set up a still life. In case anybody would like to do a still life, paint from a still life, you can do that. Otherwise, a lot of us did our own thing. We brought a photo or something that we wanted to copy or use. And we continued on and did a great job and had such a wonderful time. We hate to see it end. I don't know how long it'll continue on. It's like a couple of months at a time. But we're hoping it'll continue on. But it's something that our group has been looking for a long time, because, as Terry can tell you, we used to have something like that, and we haven't had it for a long time. And there's just something about artists getting together, doing painting together. It's just great. We have some conversation, and we help each other along, and it's a great time. So anybody who would like to do that, please feel free. I won't be attending this week because I'll be in Washington, but any other Wednesday I expect to be there.
Okay, thank you, Roger, very much. And I just want to finish by saying that the Senate Lobby Art Exhibit is still pending, December through February. I'm sure it's early December. I haven't got the exact date. And I have the list of those of you who signed up to do this, and there's room for more. So I'm going to pass this list around. If your name's not on it already, and it might be, anyhow, put your name down if you want to enter. There's no problem with the size of the painting as long as we are told ahead of time. We're going to go in and take a look and see what it looks like. We've already seen it, with pictures, and it looks elegant. I mean, it's very nice to think that the Braintree Art Association can have its name in the State House. And sell, probably. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Tommy Cherry for a minute, because I was fortunate enough to get the notice that he was painting at the L Street Brownie place. I think that's what it was. I get them mixed up. Anyhow, in Southie, and I saw Tommy do this wonderful painting in a short time, and he's just so friendly and helpful. So he studied, letting you know his history if you've got this newsletter. He studied figure painting under Casey Bra, and also at the Museum of Fine Arts. He studied landscape under William St. George and David Curtis of the Rockport Art Association. He studied still life under Ed Carson, also of the Rockport Art Association. He has had many group shows, including the Marina Bay Arts Festival, Cape Cod Arts Association show, William St. George's Gallery, and South Boston Street Festival. He has also had many solo shows, including 224 Boston Street. Many shows were from there in 2005 to 2012. He also had works published in the South Boston Literary Gazette and was featured as an alumni in the 2004 Boston Latin Magazine. He's a very talented young man, and he's also a firefighter. And he comes from Southie, but your station is where? Brooklyn? Beacon Hill? Okay. So imagine that, a firefighter too, you know. So we're very fortunate. Give a hand to Tommy.
Thank you, Nancy. Honestly, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I didn't realize it was being filmed, so there's a little more pressure. But but no. So that's pretty much my background. I've been painting for maybe 10, 15 years, and what I've found I've learned the most for is taking workshops with, find someone's style I like and try to take a couple-day workshop. I found like the classes really didn't work for me. It was go there, paint for a couple days, watch them paint, and I found that's how, at least for myself, how I've learned the most. But if anyone has any questions, shout them out. We'll try to bang out a painting here in about an hour and a half or so, and I'll kind of, as I'm painting, I'll just go along my process and touch on a couple points that I've learned over the years. So just for, I'm not used to talking into a mic. So first off, what I normally do is instead of painting on a white canvas, it's pretty difficult to judge any stroke you're going to make or how it's going to look. So I'll normally just, tone it down with, either red or something kind of warm, because it's nice to kind of see some of the warm color show through the final painting. It gives the painting a little, like maybe vibrancy, and it makes it look a little, a little brighter instead of just when you see some of the red show through or some of the warmer colors show through. And again, this is just, just kind of splash it down. It doesn't really matter how you do it. And for canvases, I found the biggest mistake that I would always make, and I see a lot of people make it, is they're buying these crummy canvases, and it's so difficult to paint on them. And it's spend $5-10 extra, and those cheap canvases, they just suck the paint in, and it makes everything very difficult. So these are probably like $5-10 a piece, and you can get them online. It's linen, oil, primed linen, and the paint just stays on top of it. It doesn't, some of the canvas ones, they just suck the paint in, and it makes it a little more difficult to paint. So, paints, you don't have to spend a ton of money on them. Brushes, you spend a decent amount, but canvas is the most important thing that I've found is spend a couple extra bucks, and it'll make your life easier when you're painting.
What was that website again?
I think there's one called like Joe's Artorama, or there's Dick Blick, I believe. Utrecht has canvases that you can buy. But instead of buying, these 5-packs for $10, spend a couple extra bucks and purchase some decent canvases. All right, so anyways, we'll paint. We'll do a little picture of us, my youngest boy. So that was just a picture down the Cape. So there's all kinds of different ways to start a painting, and what I'll normally do, and you can do a super detailed drawing, get in there, and then kind of let it dry, and then go back and add color. Some people don't even bother drawing; they'll just start blocking everything in. So what I found myself kind of works the best. So I'll kind of put in the basic shapes, and we'll just kind of, okay, where's the top of his head going to be? Where's his feet going to be? Where does that horizon line want to be? And this starts coming into composition, which is probably one of the biggest things about painting a good painting. It's leading the eye. How is the thing, set up? And for me, that's the most difficult part is, okay, what do I want to paint and where am I going to lay everything in? Putting the color on there, doing the drawing, that stuff should, be a little easier. It's kind of using your mind and how you're going to lay everything out that I've found is the most difficult part. So with composition-wise, you don't want your horizon line right in the middle. You don't want someone's head hanging off there. You don't want someone's hand on the edge. I mean, there's all these, kind of basic things. But if you're not doing a lot, you might not realize. So, and that's in art books everywhere that you kind of know. But it's just something you always have to think about when you're starting a painting out. So we'll kind of go ahead. We'll put this is Benjamin. We'll put his head maybe in here, and then, how is his shoulders set, and that's a good way to kind of figure lines. You hold up your brush and kind of go like that, finding angles. Let's see, we'll put him down here, put his head here. All right. And again, we're just kind of laying everything in here basically. And what I've found, I'll go ahead, I'll put in some basic strokes, and then we'll kind of do this in three sections, if you will, today. We'll spend, maybe 15 minutes on blocking the thing in. We'll spend 15, 20 minutes on refining the colors, refining the shapes, and then the last 10 minutes is putting the finishing touches on, putting highlights in there, which is, what really brings the painting together. All right. So I kind of made them a little too low because, we want to, and that's what's good about these canvases. You can just wipe stuff off. If it was some of those other canvases, now the kind of color's stuck there. These, with the nicer canvases, it's a little easy to fix things. So we want to, let's say his feet should be right about here because we want the shadow in there. That's kind of a cool part of the painting. And, all right. And when I'm painting too, one of the best things I was taught is, you're not painting a child, you're not painting the sand, you're painting this little negative shape here, you're painting this line. So it's tough to get your mind out of, hey, I'm not really painting a tree, I'm painting the shapes around it. And you have to almost visualize, okay, I need this little space here, I need this space between his legs to look right. And that's all you're really painting. You're painting all these shapes and putting everything together instead of just, okay, here it is. And getting your mind to kind of think like that was a difficult step for me. But, once you start thinking that way, it makes painting a little easier. All right, and again, we'll kind of take some, he's holding a shovel here. I'm thinking maybe he'll hold maybe we'll make him hold like a fishing rod or something. He'll come out here and make it, and that kind of makes the composition a little better. Now your kind of eyes come in here, comes up here, we'll drop down a little something, the hook here. And you can take take some artistic license. And again, we're just kind of getting the basic spots in there. And again, that's kind of really all I'll do. If I'm doing architecture or something, maybe I'll take a little more time because, now your perspective has to be right. The buildings have to be straight. When you're doing maybe more landscapes or figurative maybe not so much, but landscapes you can kind of be a little more abstract, kind of, all trees don't look the same, whereas if you get an arm wrong, it'll be a little obvious. So I'll take a little more time, if I was doing some more architectural type stuff. But all right, so this is kind of a real basic drawing, if you will. And now all I'll do is we'll start blocking in some stuff. And again, this is a big main shape. And I'll just do a little, keep it pretty light. And what I use for, this is just turpentine. And this is like a mix. It's varnish and stand oil. And it gives the paint a little thicker quality. It makes it flow a little easier. So I'll kind of use that at the beginning. And then towards the end, I'll just use straight paint out of the tube. And, a good way to check when you're painting outside, it'll kind of hold your brush up to whatever you paint, and, does the color look okay? It's a decent way to check. And again, so when I'm blocking it in, I'm just, for one, and this is kind of the second point that I want to bring up is values. Values and composition are probably for me the two, biggest things that you need to think about when you're painting. A value being, is this lighter than that? Is, he's how many shades darker than the sand? Because basically all we're painting is light. You're painting how does the sun hit something? Is this in the shade? You think, someone's, it's a person, they're orange, but are they really orange? Are they purplish? You really have to train your eye to look at stuff, not what they normally are, but what the color actually is. All right, so we'll kind of just put this in here. And again, we don't have to be perfect with the color right now. It's more kind of values and kind of blocking everything in. And that's the other thing. You don't want to be kind of chintzy with your paint. You kind of want to slop it on. They're not slop it, but get it in there. And there's this little spot between the legs here, and and then we'll carve in the neck. Maybe we'll bring the composition-wise. Maybe we'll bring the ocean down a little more. And another good thing is too. You get all caught up in here, and you're doing all this. Every minute, take a step back. This is how you should be looking at a painting. People look at them from back here. You get a better visual idea of where the painting's going and how it looks, as opposed to you get kind of, tunnel mode, tunnel vision. You're just painting up here all the time, and stepping back. So a good lesson that I was taught was do 3 to 5 strokes of paint and then step back. You keep mixing, you're mushing everything around, especially when you get towards the end of middle stages of a painting. Paint, couple strokes, step back, and you really see, you get a better idea of anything you may have screwed up on, or how it's looking. So again, we're just kind of blocking all this in. There's a little, yeah. Okay. And now we'll do a little blue here for the ocean. And again, this looks more like green, but maybe just keep it a little simple, we'll just keep this kind of a lighter blue. And again, we'll kind of just see how it looks against that. You kind of, that's how I'll judge values. I'll put it against the color it's next to. That looks a little too dark to me. We'll tone it down. That looks a little better. Again, get this. All right, and then color-wise for my palette, I think it's called a split primary. So it's 2 of each primary color. There's a warm yellow, a cool yellow, a warm red, a cool red, a warm blue, and a cool blue. And honestly, you can paint with just yellow, red, and blue. You really don't need much. And some white. You can really basically mix any single color under the rainbow from just 3 primary colors. But I've found it's good to have a warm and a cool color of each. All right, so now let's block him in. So he's more, it's kind of it looks like kind of a cool red. So we'll take a little red, little green to kind of, tone it down. Again, you kind of hold it up and just kind of see. Another good kind of point that I don't really follow, I guess, as much as I should is you start tending to use white too much, and it starts chalking down and kind of dulling down your painting. So I'll try to steer clear of using white. I'll try to use a little yellow instead, until the end or something when you really need bright colors. So see this, and again, it's just painting shapes. You're not painting his back. It looks, kind of like a V a little. So paint a V, And then, how does his arm come down? It comes down like this, and then his arm kind of crooks back a little like that, and, where does his hand end in relation to his shorts? You're always trying to see, and then you get this negative space right here, and, he's going to be holding his little thing there. Okay. And again, there's all different colors here. It's darker here, it's pretty dark under his arm, and we'll add all that stuff in later, but it's just for this point we'll kind of try to get the basics in there. And then his hair is obviously a lot darker, so we'll, just kind of get that going in there. There's a little spot there. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to shout them out. It's tough to talk for for an hour and a half about things. All right, and then where does his leg line up here? Kind of there. We'll go ahead and the shadow looks a little on the purple side. We'll go. Kind of looks a little. This guy is 2, a little Ben. Then we have another little boy. We have Patrick and Benjamin. I'll kind of see where the. Let's get his shorts in there. This probably wants to come up a little higher, and and then his shorts darker than his back, and that's where value comes in, and and another big thing that I was taught early is when you're painting something, when you're judging whatever you're looking at, you want to squint, and squinting will show you the values. It kind of gets rid of some of the detail you're looking for. You squinted it, okay, that part of the piano's darker than the top part. How was that in relation to the wall? So you squint, not when you're looking at your painting, and then it's just a good way to judge values is to just squint at your subject, and that kind of takes the detail out of it and just lets you know whether something's lighter or darker. All right, so throw his shorts in here. And again, that's a little too red. Kind of tone that down. These shorts kind of shoot out here and then come down. Let's see what we want with this. All right, so there's a basic blocking of something. You can kind of judge some values, judge some compositional stuff. So, at this point, I know, another good thing is, you start with the biggest brush you can. You want to just mass everything in. Don't get bogged down with the details early on. And as I get going with the painting, I'll just get slow, tinier and tinier and tinier brushes, instead of, if you're painting with a real small brush right to start, you kind of lose, you lose effect. You need to lay down the foundation first and then build on top of that. All right. So now we'll kind of go ahead and start, adjusting color, if you will. We'll start adjusting, where everything's lined up. And another good thing is, you get a couple main things for a good painting. Composition being one of them. Values, having a good, wide range of values and having the correct values. And it's something that's really not discussed a lot is edges. There's not really many hard edges, just in life in general, outside of maybe architecture or buildings, but especially on the human form, like, as I go on, that won't be a hard edge, his head won't be a hard edge, and there's different ways to, to blend stuff in, but, you want things to be a little more smooth. You don't want things to be sharp and a big contrast. That kind of will, in some cases, if that's your focal point, that will draw the eye. A big hard edge will draw the eye to that. But for the most part, especially figurative stuff and portraitive stuff, everything should probably be blended a little, be a little more smoother. And, edges is a big part of painting, that sometimes gets overlooked. A lot of times when I was painting originally, it's all these sharp and hard edges, and it doesn't look real actually until you start blending stuff. Made things a little more realistic. All right, so why don't we'll go ahead and work on his body. Let's it's a little too dark. It's kind of not as colorful if it should be. So, and I mean from this point in, each stroke I put on there, hopefully that'll be the last stroke. I mean, we'll finish some stuff, but instead of just slopping stuff around, we'll take time and make each stroke, hopefully, will be one that's showing through in one of the last ones. All right, so his back's a little on the tanner side. Okay. It's a little too green. Okay. Shoulder comes down. His foot drops down, and then again, you judge in angles. This heel, his left heel, it's probably on that type of angle. So then you look at it, that it's way off there. So this should probably come down a little. This should come up a little. And again, that's what you always want to be judging. His hand in relation to his short, or his, how his feet stay. And then again, another good way to judge, it looks like his shorts might be a little too low. You can kind of check with your, from the top of his head to his shorts is about this length, from his, let's say his shorts to his, his feet. And then you can kind of judge on your painting and be like, man, this needs to move up a little. And that's something you run into with figurative painting a lot. You really need to, constantly be checking. So, we'll move these up a little. And maybe we'll move his legs up a little. It'll give us a little more room for kind of the shadow. The shadow is kind of a little too low. We'll move these up. And again, and now we'll kind of, with the sand here, now you start cutting stuff in. So, okay, here's his, should be about there. This comes down. And there's a little edge here. This you can just tell his arms. I have his arm coming this way. His arm should be coming this way. So you check your angles, and this should just be like this. And we need to fix his arm here. All It should be a little more like that. And again, you're painting, you're just painting negative spaces. You're painting this little area behind, behind here. It comes down like this. And the other edge is about like that. And then there's a little shoulder here, and then it comes a little straight. And this comes hands. And again, it should be stepping back more, but every so often you just keep stepping back. And this foot, this actually comes out this way. That one's going a little more up. And we're just kind of his toes about that, and this comes in. And again, there's a couple different ways to, to soften your edges, if you will. So you can kind of mix a color that's, between blue and orange. You can take just a dry brush and kind of just mix them together. Let's see. This kind of comes in. This foot comes back. And his shorts here. His shorts are up. Come out. I know. Oh, this goes down. All right. So that looks a little better. Just a couple minutes of, working the shape, and it's so much easier when you look back here. I'm like, oh man, his shoulders, his shoulders are like this. His shoulders are up here, they're pretty off. So, and that's something you don't get when you're right up here. You need to keep stepping back and keep, and that's my biggest fault. And for the, from what I've seen people paint, that's normally one of the biggest, issues they have. Now see where I have the highlight of his shoulder right here. It's going to be right in this line here, So that's probably a poor composition decision. So I could either move you can move the horizon down, move the C line down. You could kind of put it on an angle. There's all kinds of different, and that's more compositional, tricks. It makes the painting more interesting. Maybe if it's, maybe I don't know if we should bring it down or bring it up. Maybe we'll move it up a little. And just see how it is if it's more something like that. And that, kind of diagonals give the painting a little more energy. So let's try. And again. And that's kind of what I found painting's all about. You can take your artistic license and you can move stuff around and you can add things. It's whatever creates kind of a good painting, whatever makes it a little more, better to view. So maybe we'll do something like that. And then now the highlight on his shoulder will stand out a little more. We'll kind of maybe make this sand a little darker here. And a lot of times when the water line does hit the sand, it's a little, it's a kind of a different, little grayish here. And again, now that we kind of go, we want to get his, that should be in a little more. That should be, shoulders are a little. Let's get his ears in there. You know, ears are always a little redder. You know, your hands, your ears, you know, there's a little more maybe blood there or whatnot. I mean, that comes down to, you know, anatomy. And if you're really, really into painting the figure, there's so much. I mean, you really need to know basically anatomy and where the muscles are. And I mean, I really don't know much about that. But all right, his ears are a little big, but we'll fix those. All right, so now, you know, I'll kind of add a little on the ocean up here. And again, you know, I'll go back to a bigger brush. We'll, you know, maybe I'll darken that up a little. All right. And another thing too is, you know, if when I'm painting, I would originally like paint everything in and keep everything, you know, it would all look the same. Whereas, you know, now it's kind of, you like, at least for me, I like seeing some brush strokes, and it doesn't have to be completely, you know, all the same color. It's nice when a little, you know, different colors show through. So kind of keep it, and then also you can kind of keep some of these outside, you know, the sand, the ocean, a little more less defined. And then when you paint, you know, your center of interest, your focal point, you're a little more detailed with that. That makes, you know, the figure just, you know, pop a little more. All right, so I'll just kind of work on his, and again, not, you know, now that we're cutting in kind of his head, we kind of want to be a little more deliberate, you know. Kind of comes down here, and this comes down. Oh, fumble. At least it didn't fall. Normally they fall face down. I'm sure you guys have all had that. And to be honest, that's kind of why I find, like, when you paint it with an easel, I find like it's just easy to put it on a table or something, because one of the legs might start falling and the whole thing will, paint goes everywhere and it'd be a big mess. And normally I'll try to paint with it a little high. I mean, this, I don't want to say this is a little low, but I think it's better to be looking, you know, directly at something as opposed to, I'm kind of looking at a touchdown, but that's not a big deal. Okay, now, I mean, I like the, you know, maybe the horizontal, I mean the little diagonal here a little better. It gives a little more, and again, you don't want these hard edges, you know, the ocean's a little, and we'll add some detail thereafter, but, you know, now's the time we're trying to get our colors right, we're trying to get our, you know, our drawing right, and then we'll go back, we'll, you know, maybe add a little water detail, maybe, you know, maybe we'll give them a fishing rod, maybe not. I mean, that's just all stuff we can add at the end. All right, how we doing for time?
Great. Yeah,
all right.
39, quarter 9, anything like that.
Okay, all right.
But no later than that.
All right, we'll try to, and that's, at least painting style for me, I really would never go back. Occasionally, but I kind of lose concentration. I'd rather just paint once and be done with it, because I feel like it loses the spontaneity. You're there, you're painting, then you go back the next day. But I mean, some people will go back and paint, you know, the same thing 5 times and keep refining it. But for me and my personality, I'd kind of be like, let's, you know, go on to the next one. But I feel like then when it does come out good, you know, occasionally, then it has a spontaneity. It looks, you know, and that's a lot of the artists that I kind of am drawn to. it looks like they're just, oh, look at these nice brush strokes and look at all this, but there's really a lot of thought and effort that goes into it. It looks like they're just, slap and paint there, but it's a real, they're working up to that, and a couple really well-placed brush strokes will kind of make everything look, look like it's not haphazard, but look, have that fresh look. And to me, that's kind of the, painting style that I'm drawn to a little. But again, everyone's different. All right, so let's add a couple of highlights here just to kind of judge where, how things will look. So, there's a couple of these highlights kind of define the painting a little. So, here on his shoulder, there's a nice little, highlight here, and it's actually kind of, it's kind of a red, color below it, and then there's a nice highlight on top of that. Kind of like that. It's a little too orange. Same thing over here, and again, it's up here. And block down. And his feet too. So his foot's kind of coming straight out here. It's and this foot's coming out. There's a little. Shoulder I don't really like here, and again, it's kind of easy, pretty easy with oils to just kind of fix things, or as opposed to, and I think that's why I'm, watercolors I just find so difficult. It's one little mistake and it kind of, it's so difficult to fix things. This sun was kind of shooting out a little too much, so let's fix this. It's kind of, this shoulder kind of comes down, and then this comes out, so it comes more straight down. So we'll try to make this sand a little darker, like I was talking about, just so these kind of highlights maybe pop a little more. Work on a shadow a little. And for the most part, working from photos is kind of difficult. Normally the shadows and the darker colors don't show you as much, color that's really there. So, a good point when you are working from photos is maybe lighting up, adding a little more color to the shadows, making them a little lighter, giving them a little more life. So we'll try to lighten up this shadow here. I mean, it's pretty dark there, but in real life there's probably a lot more colors there. So we'll kind of make it maybe a lighter purplish. you know. And again, now we want to, you know, pay attention. You know, there's a little shadow under his foot, and which way is it? You know, it's looking something like that. This comes out. His foot kind of, there's a shadow there. And I still don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think. Maybe we'll throw a little fishing rod in his hand there or something, or might give it a little look. And again, you know, now we want our lines to be straight. And again, we're looking at composition. So, you know, do you want it this way? What do you want? Do you want to not see it? Do you want to? I feel like if it, you know, might come up this way, and then, you know, a little fishing lure will hang down. So now we want to get our, you know, it has to be off this hand is holding it. You know, and then. You know, and that just gives it a little, you know, now your eye's coming here, now your eye's going up here, now it's coming down here. And these are just little, you know, compositional tricks to, you know, lead your eye. And when you're looking at a painting, you're like, oh, wow, you know, let's go to the museum. Oh, that's a cool painting. And there's probably so many little tricks that they're using that you really don't even realize it, where, you know, once you start, you know, really looking into it, you know, that's probably not how the scene looked. They probably, you know, changed some things, or the flagpole's leaning this way, this tree's here. You know, there's all these little subtle techniques, you know, that you can use just to make the painting more pleasing to the eye. All right, so, you know, that's not that bad. All right. And again, you know, these hard edges, you don't really want them, but what we do want is some nice, good, like real red highlights here, like light red. You know, and this looked like was a warm day, so our highlights, we probably want to make them kind of warm, so do like a nice warm red. It's maybe a little too white. All right, so, you know, there's a little on that. All right, over here looks a little haphazard, so let's work on we'll work on his arm here, we'll work on, you know, fixing the actual beach part, so. And again, we don't have to slot, like some of these pots you see like the red underpainting kind of shows through a little. Sometimes you don't want to lose that. It gives it a little, you know, vibrancy, and it makes, when some parts of the painting use kind of thin paint, you know what, for the most part, you know, what I've been taught is the darker color should be a little thinner paint. And as you work up to, you know, brighter and brighter colors, make those a little thicker. You know, and when you have these like kind of thin pots of paint, when you do have like thick, brush strokes, it makes them even look a little more thicker. So I'll try to leave some parts of the painting pretty thin, not do this heavy paint all over it. And so we'll try to leave some of these thinner sections. But I do want to fix up his arm here. This is a little down, and we'll kind of get that about there. And again, you know, you kind of see this red. You know, when you squint at this red right here, it's actually a lot darker than the sand. You know, it looks like it's a pretty bright highlight, but it's just a pretty high intensity red. You know, when you look at this, you know, this value right here, it's a little too light. So we'll make this a little darker. We'll make this right here a little lighter, and we'll kind of fix the highlights in his shorts there. And again, we're painting just, it's a little sliver of sand there. And this comes up. It's down. How his hand comes, it's holding on to that. This comes down. All right, so it's coming along. Let's fix his shorts while we're looking at it. And again, I just kind of, you know, again, in values is what comes down to the most important thing. I just had the values off a little here. We'll darken this up, but we'll make it pretty red. You know, that looks a little better. And again, you know, that's what you're comparing. You're comparing how does this compare to the color next to it? How does this compare? Is it lighter? Is it darker? You might, you know, physically in your mind think, you know, this has to be green. You know, but in reality, when you're looking at it, maybe it's a little more orange, maybe it's a little more yellow. You know, and that's what you have to do when you're painting, especially when you're painting outside. You know, again, it's just, what does that shape look like? What value in comparison to the shape next to it is it? You know, and if you do get them, you know, somewhat right, then everything will start falling together. All right, so let's fix his shorts over here a little. And again, like against maybe a darker color, you can kind of go a little lighter. That'll give it a little more contrast. You know, whereas over this, you know, side, you make it a little darker to make, you know, the red look a little, so that, you know, again, more little tricks to make things work. You know, we're gonna have to paint the shadow for this little rod there. All right, so. You And again, you want, try to get that exact, line. And then it's like, do I carry this off the canvas? Do you leave it there? There's kind of, we'll see what looks better. So, maybe you don't even see it coming out that other side. So, sometimes things are better left unsaid. And again, just kind of fixing these, how the angles are. We'll almost like carve out the foot. We didn't really paint it. We're just we're carving it out from this negative space. And where I have it now, his ankle actually needs to come over a lot more to the left here. No, this should be way more over here. This comes down. I don't like that. On this, he has a all right, now I'll kind of go a little smaller brush here and start. Actually, maybe we'll try to. Now, speaking of edges, I'll try to soften up some of these edges now. This arm right here, that shouldn't be like that. This should just be and again, you get a kind of a color in the middle. Just kind of make it a little softer. This arm right here. This should actually be over a little more. Yeah. Looks like his neck's a little too wide. We'll kind of narrow that up. All right, so let's maybe work on his hair now. See, it's a brownish. Browns are kind of a little, I found it for me a little tough to mix. It's kind of a little green, a little blue, a little red. Again, this is, one of the darker values of the painting. And then we'll, there's a nice big highlight up here. We get a little smaller brush. Looks like a little, it's kind of like looks a little reddish orangey. Okay, that looks a little maybe too bright. All right, so any questions so far? Or I hope I'm not boring anyone. Sorry you guys have a bad seat. I'll try to paint from over here. But, and then, a lot of times I feel like, you got to kind of take a little minute or two and kind of, like I said, step back, look what's working, what's not. So maybe we'll add a little like bobber on this thing. It'll add a little something there. But I feel like for the most part, at least he's kind of drawn somewhat correctly now. And then maybe from this point on, then now you're really refining shapes. The ocean, the sand, I probably wouldn't touch that again. It's just, then the focus will be on, the figure, the focus can be on some of the details. We'll add some, maybe a little water stuff there, but I think we're looking decent for time. I mean, how long do people normally paint here? Do they go like an hour and a half or something? I mean, is that when they do demos? Yeah.
Yeah, from 7 to 8:30. But it's flexible.
It all depends.
All right. Well, I don't want to bore people, but we'll finish. We'll get it.
Actually, you're more informative than most artists.
All right. Well,
Well,
thank you. I appreciate it. It's difficult to speak and kind of convey
Oh my God.
what you're doing, but and then a good kind of, what I'll normally do is maybe wipe my palette clean and start over. You start getting lazy and using the same paints, and your paints get a little muddy and stuff. Exactly. So I'll try to, especially when you're mixing like highlights or pure color. All right, so. Well, you know what? It's probably out of sheer laziness that I'll normally squeeze out a little on top, and then I just put it in the back and close it up. I mean, it gets hard. All this paint is hard below that. When I originally got it, I should have just scraped everything off. But you go home and you're like, eh. So every now and then I'll just get a new palette and kind of, yeah, it looks pretty cool. But that's why everyone's like, wow, that's a ton of paint. I'm like, just like one little daub of it. So I think now, like I think this could use a little, the water, normally when the water hits, there's like a little kind of maybe a dark spot, and then there's a little, maybe reflection on top. So maybe right here we'll do a little, I'll kind of make it a little, we'll get kind of a, let's see, that looks all right. Maybe kind of do a little, it's a little too dark. A little darker. And again, that just gives it a little more, it breaks up the space a little. Put a little maybe, we can put a little highlight on that. This is a little bluish. And again, instead of like dragging a line straight across, the water's just kind of, just a little dibs and drabs here and different kind of, maybe a different value here and there. It just gives the painting a little more life. Maybe we'll fix his hair a little here. And at this point now, I'm kind of just, bouncing around. All right, let's fix one thing right now, and let's do his hair. His hair's kind of light. It's pretty orangey. And then it's, and then too, you want to kind of drag your brush with the way, way the hair's kind of flowing. So, see it kind of from here, maybe it's a little hair, that's a little too white. We'll get a little more color in there. And this kind of, there's a little. All right, and again, just a couple strokes can kind of, can show us here. And then now his ears right here too, they're a little, this is a little too light. So we'll kind of, what we'll do, we'll make these a little redder. We'll tone down the value a little. And again, we're kind of paying attention now to where exactly we're putting each stroke. And where, like, this is way too far out, so we'll bring this here. This should be right next to his hair. Yeah. And there's a touch, of a darker color up behind the ear. So we'll just put a little, let's make that a little darker. Okay, a little dark. Dark, and then now we'll just kind of cut stuff in behind it. Let's get our blue here. And again, we're finding shapes. This, this head kind of comes down at this angle, and then it comes down at this angle. So we'll try to catch that. Come down, and then his ear kind of, pops out. And I'm trying to get this. All right, now we'll try to work on his shoulders here. His shoulders are a little, they're a little blue. There's a little more purple up here. And kind of, and again, now we're just, little strokes here and there.
What is he really holding?
I think he's holding a shovel. I think that was down the Cape this year.
Isn't it amazing how kids really gravitate to the sand, love building?
Yeah.
Castles. I mean, it's like.
And it kills the whole day. It's nice.
They still love it. That's great.
Let's see. And now there's a couple of pretty dark, shadows there that kind of define his body. So we kind of got to let's try to get those right. One of them's a little off right here. So again, where does his, shoulder hit his, his back? So we'll try to get that line as good as we can. It's, about halfway right there. Let's make it a little darker. And then this same thing over here. And again, this one's, if you look, this is up a little higher, so this one should be coming from a little higher. And then he has this kind of little, the top of his bathing suit has a little, shadow there too around it, which kind of, it's maybe about here. And then it starts curling up. And let's fix this. This arm's a little messed up. This has to come under here. And this comes straight down. And then it's kind of a little darker down here. There's that purple again. And a little little small of his back has a little. And some shoulder blades. Kind of now lighten it up a little. It's a little too bright. His neck has a little. I'll fix his shoulder. His shoulder looks a little too orange here, so I'll make that a little. It looks like there's a kind of a pinkish red underneath it, and then on top of it there's a pretty bright highlight. So it comes down off his shoulder. And again, it's where is it value in relation to the rest of his body? It's just a little lighter here, and this kind of then drops down. And there's a pretty, hard. There's actually a pretty hard edge right there, whereas where the shadow hits. And same thing over here. This should be more pink. And then, when you mix a color, I'll try to find, all right, where else, in the painting is there, that color on his body, so down here on his hand, and again, it comes out, and on this hand, it's just the top of his palm, and his toes are actually, same thing with your ears, your fingers, your toes, there's a little kind of red right here. And then his toes, so his toes kind of, they're kind of on that angle. All right. And now we'll fix down here. So the toes come kind of this way. And then inside his legs right here too, there's these shorts come down. I think we're going to try to shorten. I think the legs are a little too long. We made him like a year or two older, I think. All right, but again, and just, fixing some edges, actually looking in there and saying, okay, this angle's here, this angle's here, this angle's here. You can, instead of painting the foot, as long as you get all these little, colors in here, right? And but you can see how long the leg is here. It looks like there's a little reverse, I don't know, C or something. And then you look up here. It's a little narrower up here. I probably made this a little too wide. Which makes it doesn't really hurt it. It just makes the, him look a little taller, I guess. But that's what you're looking for. Even right here, this shape in here, that's a little too wide. If you see it in here, it's just a little sliver. So now his arm looks a little. And again, these are all things you can keep revising and make it, but it's getting out of that mindset of painting a person or a tree or a house. It's painting a shape, and once you can really get your mind, wrapped around that, then, it will come together. But that's a matter of thinking, which it's difficult to do. You paint and you're having a good time. You just, slap and paint around. But, when you really put your mind to it and try to start, paying a little more attention, I found, your paintings come out a little better. So this right here too, that looks more of like a C right here. So that, that should be a little more maybe, it comes in and then out like that. And again, this arm just looks a little too, I think this arm comes out a little too much. So we'll try to, try to carve this arm in a little. And again, the shoulder comes in. This comes out a little. Maybe we'll add, now we'll add that nice spot of color there. We'll add a spot of color here. There's a couple nice highlights that we'll add.
Are you going to work any more on the ocean?
Yeah, probably. I think I maybe, make a little darker spots and maybe a little lighter spots, I guess. And then that comes to the point where, when do you think a painting's complete? Do you keep, I've found myself sometimes nitpicking at things, and I'm like, why didn't I just leave it there? Because then you start fiddling with things, and, and sometimes it's like, it needs a little more definition, but, then if you add too much, now it starts taking away from the, the overall painting itself. So, I think, there's a fine line, and then it's how detailed do you want? What type of painting do you want? You could probably spend 5, 6, 10 hours, really, really, refining this. Or do you kind of like the spontaneity of just kind of maybe a looser type of painting? Some of these ones are a little more detailed, and, those are, took obviously longer to do. But sometimes I feel like, maybe something like that's quick just has a little more energy to it, and people may gravitate more towards paintings, that are just more quick type sketches than, more finished paintings. All right, so let's add a little highlight on his shoulder here. And again, it's just we're paying attention to where we put it, and kind of follows the curve of his shoulder. Right here there's a little one. And this kind of that looks a little harsh, that kind of shadow. So now we'll just, again, like with the edges, we'll just kind of, maybe blend it in a little, make it a little less harsh. And I feel like that's kind of what really finishes paintings, like nice, kind of a nice thick brush stroke here and there, but you got to be kind of careful with them. You don't want it to be overpowering. You want some, like I said, like, kind of some thin spots and some, makes the heavier spots look nicer. Maybe we'll throw some, I don't know if you put the little marks in there in his bathing suit, but we'll work on his bathing suit a little. That looks a little too dark, so we'll try to lighten that up a little. Again, that looks maybe a little better. And a lot of times, when I'm painting something, I'll just paint right on there. Okay, it looks similar. Again, okay, so there's this little, And now see where, you can actually give a little definition, where is it, some of the highlights here, not even highlights, but it's just a little, Feel free to talk and stuff. It won't bother me. Yeah, I don't want to ruin your time. Chit chat and have a good time.
Have a cookie.
All right, so maybe we'll add his little some little, I don't know if they're anchors here on his shorts. Give it a little color. And then, then I'm like, you know what? I don't like them. So you just, I don't know. I don't know if it looks kind of, I don't know. Maybe there should be stripes or something, but So, but I mean, that's the good thing about, oil paints. You can just kind of, whack them out of there. All right. So let me work on the highlight on the shorts. That's another, big part of the painting. So we want to make sure we get those right. This kind of comes down. It's kind of his shorts. Should be over a little more. Down. Another way to kind of give a little motion, you kind of just, give it a little, brush stroke like that, and kind of makes it look like, he's moving a little. Okay. This hand too. Again, looking at angles, his hand comes down here, and there's a little, so you got to kind of make this. Just a little thing like that makes his hand look a little better. All right, and let's get a couple good. Not that happy with the highlights on his shorts, so we'll kind of fix those. And again, they should be pretty red. All right, maybe we'll do a little here on the ocean. We'll fix up his fishing pole and. right, so maybe we'll finish some of the sand around here and But then I think it's good to get other people's. You have the same eye. I mean, what do you guys? What looks wrong now? It's kind of after you've been looking at something for a while. I mean, I don't know if some of the proportions are completely. Anything's a little disjointed, but. All right. All right. So maybe we'll. And again, the sand's a little, a little haphazard. It doesn't have to be perfect. And again, leaving some things a little less detailed, give some more detail to others. And that's the other thing you could do, composition-wise. The shadow, I don't know if it's doing much. You could just push the whole shadow off, bring it this way. I mean, obviously the sun's kind of coming from the front and down this way, but, and again, that's just more different things you can do with your composition. But now we'll kind of try to, and again, here's no hard edges. We'll try to kind of, try to lighten up the shadow a little. It's a little too dark, maybe a little warmer, a little red. And again, that goes back to, the shadows just in pitches are just normally way too dark. And we'll fix this arm up. We'll fix his fishing pole and call it a day. All right. So the fishing pole, that's a pretty nice bright highlight. So we'll kind of, again, maybe I'll throw it a little more white here. All right. Again, this is make this kind of a warm, this would be one nice highlight. And again, this is one you kind of want to get right here. You know, and this is something too. A lot of people use kind of like a palette knife or something to break that in, do it in. But and again, now this kind of. Maybe we'll add a little. And you don't have to have like just a complete string down. Just kind of the idea of a couple small marks will, give the idea. And then we can put a, nice highlight on a little fishing bobber thing. Excuse me. And we'll, all right. I mean, I think that's probably probably the extent of. I mean, I think for the most part, at this point, then you start kind of fiddling with things, and you kind of. But I think that kind of you get the gist of.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.